Welcome to the Economy Magazine at I24 News. I'm Benjamin Chong Alfalas with the news from the world markets and the global economy. On today's show, Orange deepens its focus on Israeli high-tech innovation. And a look at Botswanan agriculture as it suffers one of its worst droughts in decades. First, the headlines. The World Bank's chief economist warned the U.S. Federal Reserve not to raise rates at its September meeting. Given the rising uncertainty over growth in China, Kaushik Basu told the Financial Times a rate hike next week could trigger panic and turmoil in emerging markets. He suggests the Fed hold fire until the global economy is on a surer footing. Basu's warning follows similar advice from the International Monetary Fund regarding the potential repercussions of a September rate rise. A rate hike has long been anticipated, with September being the later option, but if the Fed pushed on, it would be going against the counsel of the two institutions created at Bretton Woods to guard global economic stability. Japanese shares soared to one of their biggest one-day gains on record, with the Nikkei 225 at its highest closing since the depth of the financial crisis. Japanese benchmark surged to close 7.7% higher, the biggest one-day rally since October 2008 in percentage terms, and one of the biggest one-day gains since the early 70s. The Nikkei's rebound followed a 2.4% drop on Tuesday that had erased its gains for 2015. It is now up 7.6% for the year. Shares apparently took heart from Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's comments that the government would go beyond a planned 3.3% corporate tax cut in fiscal 2016. The president-designate of the China-backed Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank says he hopes to work with other multilateral banks. The fledgling multilateral bank will increase by a fifth to include 70 member countries soon, he said. Despite initial opposition from Washington, almost all major U.S. allies, Australia, Britain, Germany, Italy, the Philippines, and South Korea have joined. Seen as a potential rival to the World Bank and Asian Development Bank, the AIIB is expected to begin with a capital of $100 billion and start operating before the end of the year, with Asian countries expected to own up to 75% of the bank.
This institution should be cost-effective, should be efficient, should be tailoring to the needs of the borrowing countries. And I think when we work with other MDBs, such as the World Bank, ADB, EBRD, EIB, we can reduce the costs by working together.
Crude oil prices stabilized on Wednesday, helped by an upswing in Asian stocks, though fuel markets continue to be dogged by oversupply. The Brent global crude benchmark traded at $49.64 a barrel at 7 a.m. GMT, up 12 cents from its last settlement, though it fell towards 49 by midday. Asian shares extended a global rally on Wednesday, and traders said the more upbeat sentiment had flowed into oil markets. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude, however, was weaker, dropping to 45.45 a barrel as the end of the U.S. summer driving season pulls down fuel consumption. And while high global production is accompanied by a growing slowdown in demand, crude prices continue to be weighed down. French telecom giant Orange has been active in Israel for 20 years, though it has mostly been known through its affiliation with mobile operator Partner, which has used its brand since 1999. But the firm has also had a strong presence in the startup nation through its Orange Fab Startup Accelerator program. Earlier, I had the opportunity to speak with Orange's Deputy CEO, Pierre Louet. We have the pleasure today of being joined in the studio by the Deputy CEO, Pierre Louet of Orange from France. Mr. Louet, thanks for joining us.
Hello.
So you're here to visit DLD. What are you looking for in this visit?
Well, first of all, we're looking for energy that we find here. There is so much energy in this conference, and also we're looking for new contacts with new companies. And finally, we're looking forward to giving a better explanation of what we intend to do in Israel in the startup world. We've launched a year ago a company called Fab Israel. Fab, you know. Fab is an accelerator, incubator. It's been launched. It has already helped about half a dozen companies developing their projects and their programs. And we intend to show that we want to be there even more in the future, because Israel basically is a fantastic place for technology. It has proven so in the past years, and it is also part of the future of technology. So we really want to be there.
Wonderful. And of course, now, Orange has been involved with Israel for very many years already. What exactly are you looking for in terms of innovations when you look at a startup?
Well, we're looking at several things. First of all, of course, you need to have someone in front of you with a good idea, and hopefully something that has not been done by too many others before.
Right.
Second thing is you're looking for a good team. Teams are essential to the game. You know, if you don't have a team, it's not going to work usually. And then we're looking forward to meeting people who are going to be good in execution, because if you have a good idea and a good team, but you know you're a bit sloppy in the execution, it's not going to work. Execution is the key word, and so we try to filter those different items, teams, ideas, capacity to execute, and we try to invest in companies that we believe in, and we try to help them also in developing their projects and going also abroad, going to several geographies, because Orange is a worldwide group, so we try to take them abroad also.
Okay, so this actually kind of already answers my question, which is going to be, I mean, where do you see Orange's involvement in the future in the Israeli market?
Well, we see it as a major desire for us. We've been in Israel for many years, like around 20 years actually, in different activities. We're not there as a telco, as you know. This was the whole issue of the little dispute around the brand that we had in the recent months. But we were there, and we are there, and we intend to be there in the future, even more in technology, in accessing good ideas, good people. Again, Israel is really like maybe the second place in the world behind, behind California, which is pretty big, And
so it's Silicon Wadi.
Yeah, well, exactly. So it's really the place to be. In France, as our Minister Emmanuel Macron was saying this morning, we try to foster, the number of startups and the way we help those startups. But actually, we look at Israel as a model in many ways. So it's interesting to be where the model was invented.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to backtrack a little bit because you mentioned, what happened essentially between Orange and Partner in Israel. Specifically, just to clarify, because I understand that Partner essentially licensed the name Orange, was never actually an operator of Orange. Orange never had actually operators in Israel, correct?
Well, that's correct. We don't want to spend too much time on that because it's really something that belongs to the past. And also, we have settled the dispute, and I think both of the parties are very happy about the settlement. But actually, yes, it was a matter of a company which had a license right to use the brand. So it was the only place, and it is the only place in the world where Orange doesn't operate its brand. So that's the whole thing. But it's settled in very good, I think, terms for the two parties, and we have a good understanding of the future today.
Okay, now Orange, of course, is a very big company. You gross about 40 billion euros a year, if I'm not mistaken. You're the 7th largest mobile operator in the world. Where do you see your growth targets? And you're generally speaking, talking globally, where do you see your markets?
Well, in terms of global markets, there are two ways to consider this. Geographically, we're expanding in Europe, but even more expanding in Africa and the Middle East. This is the geography in which we want to expand. You can easily compare this strategy with, for instance, Telefónica, which is one of our competitors. Telefónica is spending in Latin America. We have chosen another part of the world. That's the geography. And then in terms of what we sell to the people, yes, we intend to sell more and more convergent access to IPTV, to the internet, to data sessions, and we intend to sell more and more of that with an even better quality all the time. We want to be the best network, wherever we operate. We're the best network in France, for instance, by far, and we want to keep that situation going on for the next years.
Now, where do you see the future of the telecom growth market? And do you see Orange being involved in big data? And if so, how?
Yes, well, the future is easier to describe after, once it's done. But we intend to continuously provide a good access to a growing number of people. We give access. That's what we do. We give access, and then we carry the data sessions that the people do, and we carry their voice sessions. So we want to be in that field. Obviously, we want to have the quality, and we want to see how we're going to be operating or competing also with the new players that have appeared. I'm talking about the Googles, the Facebooks of this world. We are looking for new ways, and we actually, we might come to new understandings between those groups and ourselves.
Wonderful. And in terms of big data also?
Probably big data is one of the fields, of course, which we are exploring. Today, big data for us is very internal. We produce a huge amount of data in the network, and we use that data to make an even better network. That's the way we use data today. But of course, tomorrow it's going to be used in different ways. We've started using data in terms of geolocalizations, for instance. You give access to geolocalization products, but there are many more products that we can develop. It's also going to be based on the evolution of legislation in Europe. And Europe, in these days, Europe is thinking about that. It's going to be moving in the next digital package in Europe. So we want maybe to wait for that.
Okay, well, Pierre Louet, thank you so very much for joining us at Eindhoven News. Of course, considering Orange's move into more technology-related work, we'll probably have you more often in this studio.
Thanks very much. I'm looking forward to that.
Enjoy your stay. Thank you so much. Swaths of southern Africa are badly in need of rain, what some say is the worst drought in decades. In Botswana, the agricultural sector is taking the strain. Here's more.
Botswana hasn't seen a drought like this for 30 years. Richard Mokatlane is barely able to feed his livestock, let alone grow crops.
Most of the time I grow maize, watermelons and beans. This year I tried growing sorghum, but unfortunately it did not rain. A little grew despite the dry conditions you see now, but I eventually gave up on it ever reaching maturity.
Only a third of Botswana's arable land has been cultivated this year as a result of the drought. It could have dire socio-economic consequences for the country.
Another issue which crops up is that prices of foodstuffs go up, you see. Yeah. Livestock has become a problem because grazing is very, very poor. What's going to happen? We're probably going to have a loss of livestock. We're going to have a loss of employment as well in these industries due to the drought which we are currently experiencing.
It's devastating for the country's farms. But even businesses in the city are feeling the strain, especially those in the tourism sector.
Since we can't do our normal water sports activities, and we normally do run several regattas a year and competitions and so on, and training, and we do youth training, trying to get more people to learn about water sports. We are sort of focusing on more social activities at the club.
The government has allocated emergency funds of about $44 million to support livestock farmers, irrigation projects and extra meals for children suffering of malnutrition. Help that Richard will depend upon until the rains return.
The Middle East has long been an important market for China, with trade increasing by more than 600% in the last decade to roughly $230 billion in 2014. With us on the set for more information on this trend is I-24 News reporter Ayman Zigzag in Financial Bazaar. Ayman, thanks for joining us.
Happy to be here.
So, China and the Middle East.
Yes, China and the Middle East. Well, it's a very interesting relationship between the Middle East and Far Eastern countries. As you mentioned, the financial relationship between the two, Middle East and China, has been increasing. It was on a very good trend. Now, most of China's interest in the Middle East is, of course, oil. It's buying oil from the Middle East at very nice prices. But with the tumbling down of oil prices in recent years and the problems China's stock market has had recently, the relationship is now being put into question. What will happen next? It's not really clear. And it's interesting, not only if we examine oil, also we have to remember that China is a production powerhouse.
Of course.
So,
I mean, the Middle East actually is a huge market for China as well.
Exactly.
Which is not entirely, presumably, a positive thing for the Middle Eastern countries, presumably with all this, cheap produce coming in.
Exactly. So China is one of the biggest sources for produce for the Middle East. And now with the recent crisis in China's stock market, Middle Eastern companies and buyers are buying a little less from China. Now we saw a 16% decline in the Chinese stock markets and a 30% decline in the Gulf Cooperation Council markets as a result 2 weeks later. So it has been, the markets in the Middle East did react dramatically to the Chinese decline. Now, the question is, what will happen next for this relationship? They are trying to keep a happy face on and say that oil will continue to be a huge catalyst for this relationship to continue. The question is, really, the bigger question is, where is China headed?
Right.
And that's how we'll also find out where the relationship with the Middle East is headed.
Okay, now where does Iran fit in all of this?
Well, Iran is in an extremely difficult and problematic situation right now with all of the world, not just with China. With the Iran deal coming in, Iran is expected to finally access or liquidate over $100 billion in assets that it's accumulated over the years in oil prices that it did not have access to before because of the sanctions. So now with Iran being able to access all of that money, it will of course change the relationship with China as well, and the possibilities are open, not all of them good for the Chinese markets now.
Okay, it'll be very interesting to see how all of that develops, of course, as China also builds out its new Silk Road, so to speak, with about 48 countries all along, reaching out to the Middle East and Europe.
We're going to have to have a lot to talk about that in upcoming weeks.
Well, I look very much forward to having you again. Ayman Siksak, thanks for joining us, giving us more
Thank you,
information
Benjamin.
regarding the Middle East and China and how they interrelate. Thank you.
Thank you, Benjamin.
And those were the reports from the Economy magazine for now. Thank you very much for watching, and join us again tomorrow.